Well, hi everybody, and welcome. Today I want to talk about high sensitivity and what that actually means. Highly sensitive people are about 20% of the population. They are very susceptible to sensations internally and externally in their environment. And it's a real trait. It's something that you're born with. It's not something that you develop later on. Um, Unlike, say, ADD or ADHD and some autism spectrum disorders, but I do consider it a form of neurodiversity. And the reason I've come to that conclusion is because it's so inbuilt. It's something that doesn't vary with time. And it answers why we often, as highly sensitive people, feel wrong or out of place in society, because society doesn't support high sensitivity. It's very much about conforming. It's very much about doing things the way the majority of people do them, and that just doesn't fit us. So let's just look at some of the characteristics then of high sensitivity. So I've already mentioned there's a sensitivity to your internal and external environment. So how you process things, you take a lot longer to process things, and you process them much more deeply, and you often need periods of withdrawal and quiet time in order to do that. But equally, there is also a drive to feel things deeply. And so relationships are incredibly important. Deep friendships, connections with people and animals. We often see highly sensitive people working with animals, because animals are certainly sensory creatures and we can connect with them. So we find that beautiful connection with nature and animals. We also find that people struggle perhaps with interpreting what's going on when things are not going well. So in a relationship where you're struggling, you tend to overanalyze and go into your own blame and shame much more readily. You will have difficulties processing not just emotions, but also things that you take into your body. So heat, cold, supplements, foods, new foods. You often struggle with those. Textures, so new items of clothing you may struggle with. And I've talked a little bit about that in the previous video I did with the highly sensitive child. But this is something that doesn't go away in life. It stays around, and it's something that you have to be aware of and you have to learn to harness and live with. And so paying attention to your environment and making it as comfortable and also meaningful as possible, which are often at two ends of a spectrum. So you don't want so much comfort that you have no challenge and you have no meaning. But on the other hand, you don't want so much challenge that you're overwhelmed, because overwhelm is one of the key features. We get easily overwhelmed, and particularly when we get ill. And I should know, I haven't been well the last week and a half. I've been very unwell indeed. Possibly flu, possibly COVID, who knows? But very, very difficult to get my head around not being able to function. And so if we get an illness that knocks us off our normal coping strategies, highly sensitive people are acutely aware and often painfully so of their own internal processes. And when they don't feel well, they find it very difficult to feel good about themselves and feel hopeful again. They often go into deep despair quite quickly. And so one of the ways in which we can help ourselves is to have routines and self-care routines that are enshrined in our life. So we don't vary them too much. We have time to process. We have things that make us feel good. We prioritize activities that nurture and support us. And we seek others who have similar sensitivity. It's also called sensory processing sensitivity. SPS is another term for high sensitivity, because it's actually hardwired in, and it has a variety of genetic correlates in terms of how you process Stress, how you deal with stress hormones, for instance, can vary between neurotypical people. But you also have this incredible capacity for beauty, appreciation of meaning, and depth of things. So it's about depth processing, really. Um, and so finding a life that you make fit that ability or characteristic is really vital. You cannot live like other people do, taking it for granted. I'll give you an example. So the kind of work you do for a living, for instance, has to be a vocation. All right. You cannot go into a job for the money, purely for the money, because it has no meaning intrinsically, money. And as a highly sensitive person, that will not sustain you. It will not create health or well-being in your life. And so finding something that gives you a sense of purpose, that allows you to feel like you're in the right place, doing the right thing, is absolutely vital. And you cannot ignore that. Now, when I first went into the world of work a long time ago now, but I went into computer programming because I had that kind of a brain that could sort of logically think. That didn't mean it was right for me. And within about 6 months of sitting at a desk thinking, I can't cope with this, it's so dull. And when's life going to get exciting, because it really isn't. It's day after day the same thing, analyzing code. And I had to make the very difficult decision to leave a very good job. It was a graduate role. Everyone thought I was completely mad to hand in my notice, but I just knew I couldn't live like the other people were doing, living for their weekends and their holidays, seeing it as a means to an end. Right, that doesn't work for me. What I do in life has to be something that has intrinsic meaning. So what I now do, working with people in chronic illness or with conditions of anxiety, I feel I'm uniquely placed to help them because of my own experience, but also because I have a great deal of empathy, and empathy is another feature of the highly sensitive person. We have a very highly developed sense of what other people are thinking and feeling. And so if you can find a job where that is used and harnessed, then you're going to thrive in some way. So just assuming that you can do what other people do is a fallacy, and it will not work. And you have to find alternative means of finding, a living, making a living. So don't take it for granted. Do understand that this is not something you can snap out of. It's not something that you decided to be. It's present from birth. It's more like a temperament, really, but it's how we process emotionally is at a greater level than other people. And so we're often the thinkers in society. We're often the people that are the creatives as well. And we come up with great ideas when we're allowed to. Another really important feature of the highly sensitive adult is being well supported by other highly sensitive people. Right now, hopefully there's somebody in your environment that feels things as deeply as you do. And I can remember having a best friend at school who kind of got me, and it was such a relief to have that, because at home I was sort of understood, but not deeply, and I was told I was too sensitive and I needed to toughen up, basically, which isn't really the answer for a sensitive person. They need to be highly supported and nurtured. And when they are, what's really interesting is that they far and away do better than the average neurotypical person, who is much more stable, dependent, not so dependent on the environment, whereas we are, if we're nurtured, we really go up in achievement and abilities. So this is a vital learning, and it's one that's been highly studied. There are some great researchers in this field. I'll put the links in the bottom. There's Michael Plewis, who works at Queen Mary in London, Queen Mary University. And there is Thomas W. Boyce, who works in the US doing similar work, all on high sensitivity. And there are various tests that you can take, including the one from Elaine Aron. Elaine Aron was the person who first wrote a book called The Highly Sensitive Person, and now The Highly Sensitive Child. And you can do various tests online with any of those three people that I've just mentioned. They are the preeminent researchers in this area. But honestly, you would probably already know that you're highly sensitive because you will feel other, you will feel an outcast in some way, you will feel different to other people, and you wonder why you struggle so much. So look, if that's the case for you, you absolutely need to join a community of people who understand. And I offer a monthly community get together called the Community Sessions, which is available on my website, where we come together to support each other, to understand what's going on, and enjoy each other's company. And it is remarkable how people start to thrive once they don't feel alone and isolated with this temperament or trait. So if that sounds helpful to you, this is a short one today because, as I say, I'm still recovering myself from whatever bug has assailed me. Please sign up, subscribe, sign up on the website for the community sessions. The next one is 5th of April, but it's always the first Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. UK time. So anyway, it'd be great to have you there. Take care, everyone. Take it easy. Bye for now.